Hey everyone, let's talk about the second morning of the dialogue. This part of the dialogue begins with a challenge from Miller about whether God has chosen evil. So the challenge is that if human beings are doing evil, then God has indirectly chosen evil because God created human beings and he knows what they'll do. So when God creates things whose actions he can predict, then he's chosen evil. And the solution to this is given to us by Cohen. Cohen says, maybe God doesn't know what human beings will do. And this makes it look like God might not be omniscient, because if God doesn't know what human beings will do, then he doesn't know everything. And if you don't know everything, then you're not omniscient. But there's an analogy that Cohen uses that helps us make sense of how he can be omniscient and still not know what human beings will choose to do. So God is supposed to be omnipotent, all-powerful, but that means still that there are certain things God can't do. God can't do things that are impossible or nonsensical. So God can't create a round square because that's impossible. Or God can't make 1 + 1 = 3 because that's also impossible. And there's a paradox about a stone that's too heavy for God to lift. So can God create a stone that's too heavy for him to lift? The answer is no, because that's paradoxical. So God can do everything there is to do that's possible, but he can't do some things that are nonsensical or impossible. Still, that means he's omnipotent. And you could do a similar thing with omniscience. So you can know everything there is to know except things that are nonsensical or impossible. Now, the idea here is that if God creates a free being, then what that being will do is up to it, right? It chooses what to do. So when God creates a free being, then he decides that he's not going to know what it does because the choice is up to the being. In this way, God is omniscient, but he simply doesn't know what human beings will choose to do. It's not that God can't know what they would do, but it's that he has created them free, so he has chosen not to know what they will do. Now, in this way, we can understand that human beings can choose evil. God does not know that they will choose evil because they've freely chosen it. And still, God is omnipotent, omniscient, and he's not responsible for the evil that human beings do. So this is a way of making the three attributes of God consistent with the existence of suffering. The next thing we get in this morning is the second element of theodicy. So the second one is going to be an afterlife. The idea of an afterlife is that things that happen in this current world, for example, suffering and evil doing, those things are compensated for in the afterlife. So people who cause suffering are punished in the afterlife. People who undergo suffering are compensated or rewarded in the afterlife for it. And this is a way of preserving God's justice or fairness, because this world seems to be quite unjust or unfair. So if you have an afterlife, then God has a chance to make things fair. Now, the final thing we get in this part of the dialogue is a challenge, and the challenge is about non-human suffering. So certain suffering is caused not by human beings, but just by nature. For example, earthquakes and floods, natural disasters of that kind. So far, nothing in the theodicy has accounted for evil or suffering that's done by natural things as opposed to human beings. And that's where we leave the second morning of the dialogue.